Yep. What's up? Where the fuck is my... Okay. Hello, everyone, for yet another Monday AP Poll College Basketball reaction stream. I am Ryan Hammer. If you don't know, I feel like everybody coming back. We've been doing this basically every single week all season, and we're gonna keep doing it the rest of the year, live on the BR platforms. We got the AP poll released as of about a minute and a half ago, so we're coming to you live, raw reactions. I am about to look at it for the first time. That's how we do these streams. You guys know that. Top 25 and the rest of the teams receiving votes. Remember to stay active in the chat, ask questions, give us your thoughts. We're going to start at the top, just so you know. We're going to react. I'm going to react to most comments and questions that are regarding the top teams, and then as we go down, the mid teams and the bottom teams, the top 25. So take that as you will. I'm just saying to chat respective to what the topics are, at least, and that's going to be the best thing to get your comment read and on screen. So let's start at the top. Arizona, let's just start. Let's look at the top like few together real fast. Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Iowa State, UConn, and I guess Purdue also. Like, I didn't expect any of those teams to move. Let's start with Arizona. We might as well start at the top, like I promised we would. Arizona, number one team in the country for the second week in a row. They're up to 9-0. They beat the pants off of Alabama on Saturday, which was very, very, very impressive. I think that if it had been a really tight game and a good game, Michigan might have gotten the edge on as a number one team. My personal Power 30 rankings, I was going to go Michigan until I watched Arizona on Saturday night. To be able to win that substantially versus a great Alabama team says a lot. They got 28 points out of Braden Burries. That was an absolutely massive breakout, explosive game that he had where you have Kobe Pete and Jaden Bradley and Toby Awaka and Krivas, like, and then you get the Braden Burries you want to see between him, Koa, and Dwayne Aristo, three great freshmen, and then all the other pieces they have. Like, they're proving that they deserve that number one spot, and they don't want to lose it. They have the best resume in the entire country right now, so it kind of just you can't push them off. You cannot move them off if they're already at number one. Mighty Lion says Arizona beat down on Alabama. Yeah, exactly. It was shocking, to be honest. I thought Alabama was going to keep it close and maybe even be able to sneak something out of there. Michigan, I don't have many words on Michigan. I kind of just talk about them like we talk about them every week. They've been arguably the best team in the country, analytically one of the best teams of all time so far. They've been ridiculous. There's not much to say about them. They beat Maryland. I will say one thing about Michigan is that Maryland had them on the ropes in the first half and a little bit in the second half, but the first half was all Maryland. Maryland's not good. It took some poor ref calls and Pharrell Payne, the big that was giving Michigan trouble in the paint, to get hurt for Michigan to start to take over this game. Michigan was going to win this game no matter what, I think, and they ended up winning by 18 to Maryland. They still put up 100 points, which says a lot. But I think what you can take away from that game is that there are two types of teams that can beat Michigan. Not will, but can. Either elite teams at the top, right? We talk about the Arizona, Iowa State, Duke type teams that are playing at elite status like they have been and can play and compete with Michigan if they're both at their peaks. Or a team like Maryland that is hectic and can cause chaos. And it's just kind of like this reckless game. And they have guards who can kind of create shots and just like get hot like they have with Dickie Coy and Miles Rice and teams like that. Mighty Lion, again, Michigan struggled against Maryland for most of the game. Yeah, that's my point is that if they play a team that can take them out of what they're so good at doing, give them a little bit of trouble in the front court and just get hot from outside and just make the game an absolute dogfight, that's probably beneficial. And I think that's why Michigan State is going to be super interesting later in the year. I don't know exactly when they play, but when they do play, that'll be really interesting. Duke, Iowa State, UConn. I think UConn's team I want to point on real fast at number 5. Again, didn't expect them to move up at all because you have 4 undefeated teams with unbelievable resumes and proof at the top in Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Iowa State. But UConn's kind of like not getting a lot of love because they're UConn and they're doing the things that are expected of UConn. Their standards are higher, and we're almost tired of them being so good year in, year out, and game in, game out. So I kind of get it. They have the one loss against Arizona. They didn't have Braylon Mullins healthy and Terrence Reed healthy, who are obviously two pivotal pieces. Braylon Mullins has been great, but UConn, when you watch them close out that game against Florida and close out any game, the last 5 minutes of a game, they feel like the best team in the country, executing late game situations, like in terms of clock management, timeouts, free throws, being intelligent with their actions. Like that's what UConn's going to do. It's what their experience and what Danny Hurley is going to kind of keep them going. Madness 99, UConn all caps. Yeah, I mean, they're great. Like they're very good. There's nothing really extra to say besides the fact that Big East play is not going to tell us much about them. Like they should be able to clean through the Big East, and then at that point, they might be a 2, 3 loss team max going into the tournament, which will be very, very, very interesting. Back on the MD stuff, Big Ten Foot says MD played a great game. Actually, yeah, they did. And again, stylistically, they're chaotic, but it's like Texas A&M last year when they're on, they're a tough team to beat. Zane Joseph says that Maryland played amazing. No, they did. I'm not. Listen, I'm a Maryland guy. I'm not trying to slander Maryland at all on that. I just don't. We have to be honest that Maryland is not a great team. They are not great. They are very, very much on track to be missing the NCAA tournament this year, and they probably will miss the NCAA tournament. So we still got to call it what it is. Let's move on to the next tier of teams. Gonzaga, the one team that moved up, it looks like they just swapped spots with Houston. I don't know what they saw, any of the voters. I will look afterwards to change their thoughts. Maybe it's analytical. Gonzaga is up to number 2 in KenPom right now, behind Michigan. They're 10-1. Obviously, their only loss is the 40-point loss versus Michigan, but it was on a back-to-back-to-back in Vegas for that Players Era title. They beat UCLA. I guess that's why people moved them up, but that's a game that they should win. They won by 10. They should have won by 10. Those are things that Gonzaga has to do. They're better in the front court. They're better athletically. They're just a better team, so they need to win those games exactly like they did. I wouldn't have switched anything I had from last week based off of this, but not trying to slight Gonzaga because I think I have them at 7 also, or maybe I might even have them at 6 on my power rankings. I think they're awesome. I think they deserve to be there, and they have been great. Uh, Carolina, I saw some comments on. Let's go to Louisville actually because I know the comments are always heavy on Louisville. Louisville at number 11 this week after beating Memphis and Indiana their last 2 games. Memphis was the game this week. They won by 26. Memphis has not been great. They did beat Baylor. They have looked hot and cold. They played a tough schedule, but again, this is a great win for Louisville because of how much they handled this game, how easily they handled the game. You can call them a top 10 team in the country, like quality wise, they definitely are. I personally don't think they deserve to move up. I know there's going to be comments here. We always get the comments saying Louisville's got to move up. Louisville's got to move up. Like they got to move up. There's no reason to move them above BYU, who closed out that game versus Clemson and was resilient. It won on a buzzer beater against a good Clemson team. Michigan State, Houston, Gonzaga, Purdue. Like you can't put Louisville above these teams. So it kind of is what it is. A couple comments, and then I will keep moving on. Text DMD says, why does Houston keep going down? Again, I think they just went down because some voters bumped Gonzaga up because of the UCLA win. I don't think it was like this crazy thing. Like Houston has to go down. Chase Schaub says that is Nebraska a real contender this year? Yeah, let's talk about Nebraska. Come on now. Nebraska ball. 23 last week. They were undefeated. Now they're up to 15 this week after beating Wisconsin by 30 and winning at Illinois. They're up to 11-0. They are on the country's longest win streak, dating back to last year. I think the college basketball crown they ended up winning. Nebraska ball is legit. Every single year in the beginning of the season, it feels like we do this with Nebraska, where we're like they're beating bad teams. Before this week, we could say that they're beating bad teams, not great power conference teams. Are they legit? Are they for real? We do this every year. They beat a couple of good teams. They lose to a couple of weird games, and then they end up being maybe 8 or 9 seed, or they just miss a tournament and they don't win a tournament game. They have never been this good. They have not been this good in the last few years. Their offense looks fantastic. The way that they play with intelligence and unselfishness. If you watch them, when you watch stars, like I compared it to AJ DeBanza. AJ DeBanza, the ball stops sometimes when it gets to him for good reasons. He's AJ DeBanza. He can do it all by himself if he needs to. Nebraska doesn't have that type of guy, so the ball don't stop. The ball comes, it either gets put on the ground, and they are very decisive with every action. They put it on the ground, or they extra pass it and they move. That's why their offense is so beautiful. Everyone can shoot it. Price Sanford had 30, whatever, 32, 34 versus Illinois. He had 27 in the first 16 minutes of that game. They're super fun to watch. They're super enjoyable. They're definitely a legit top 25 team. Are they going to be top 15 all year and keep rising? I would probably say unlikely, but Nebraska ball looks awesome. They are a legit top 25 team in the country. They deserve to be here at 15 this week. This is awesome to see because they're super fun to watch, and they shouldn't be good. So I think that's what's the best part about Nebraska. I will get to a couple comments again real fast because we're missing some of the from the top. Tex MD says you better watch out for Houston. I'm a Houston guy. I'm with you. They're amazing every year. They're a national title contender. They have a great team. Their freshmen are only going to get better and better. Kelvin Sampson's the best coach in the country. Happy Scout says that the Houston slander is crazy. Don't know what you mean about the slander because again, there is no slander here about Houston. Trent G says that Purdue is at 6 is a joke that got blown out at home. MSU only lost as a barn burner against Duke. I think that's they're not 30 points worse or 23 points worse than Iowa State Purdue. Like their one loss against Iowa State at home was like an eye opener. Like sure, it wasn't good at all. I'm not saying it was okay, but I Purdue being at 6 and people complaining about Michigan State not moving up. I don't think that's fair because Purdue also beat Texas Tech by 30, right? They also beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa by 6, like they or 6 or 8. They handled that game pretty well. Like you can't discount and discredit everything else Purdue is doing simply because of the one loss against Iowa State, in my opinion. Jordan 85, excuse me, says that y'all sleeping on St. John's. St. John's has been relatively underwhelming this year. I think that they're lucky to still be in the top 25, if we're being completely honest. Mighty Lion, who wins between Louisville and Tennessee? That is the game this week, one of the better games of the week. I think Louisville is better and they should win that game. Tennessee's defensive system could be an issue a little bit, but I think Louisville's too good to lose that game. I do think that is at Louisville, if I'm correct, but I'm not sure. JWA says that Vandy has played nobody, going to get smoked once they start playing real basketball teams. Listen, I understand that narrative. They beat St. Mary's and VCU pretty handily. Those are good mid-major teams. Again, it's a major difference between beating teams like that and beating teams that everyone else here has been beating at the top. They're 10-0. Their offense is great. I think they're legit for the most part. They're going to play Memphis and then Wake. I don't think you really take anything away from that extra if they win those games and they look good in it because, again, those aren't top teams either. So I hear you, and I think that's why they're at 13 and not going above that. And they were at 15 last week. Like, they're not going to crack the top 10 at this rate with how good the top 11 teams, 12 teams, 10 teams have been in the country. They're not going to crack the top 10 by playing these teams and winning these games. When they have to play Alabama, I think it's early January and games like that. They win those games. That's when you're going to be able to crack the top 10, and that's when you're going to be able to do that. Good point here. Good transition here. I'll talk about Arkansas. Parker says that Arkansas is way better than 14. I absolutely agree. They beat Louisville head to head. Obviously, that's a big one. I still think they're a better team than Louisville because look at the way that those two teams play, right? Like both of them are very offensively free flowing. They want to let their talent win games because they have such great talent and they're better than 99% of teams in the country, maybe even 100% for Arkansas. When you play a team like Arkansas, when a team like Arkansas plays against Arkansas, like Louisville does, right? Like we want to let the boys hoop and let our guys go play. Not a ton of the actions and sets. We want to let them have their freedom. Arkansas is gonna win those games. They showed that versus Louisville. They showed that versus Texas Tech, another team that plays very similar to them. I'm very high on Arkansas. They played Michigan State very tightly in the Breslin Center earlier in the second game of the season. They looked pretty good against Duke, also in a neutral site. Like that's a team that I think has a really high ceiling. I think that the way they play, like Coach Calipari teams in the past, have had a relatively lower floor in the NCAA tournament because if they play against a very organized mid-major team like a Yale that is similar to how Duke and Michigan State like to lock things up a little bit, that could be a concern for them, but they're a very, very good team. Their talent is amazing. Billy Richmond's one of my favorite players and role players in the country. Trevor Brazile has been awesome and consistent this year, which is a big difference. Darius Acuff has been awesome. Malik Thomas wasn't great this weekend, but he's been good for the entire season. Carter Knox was great this weekend. Malik Ewan's been good. Like, that is a team that you have to look out for and I think could legitimately win the SEC. Because when you look at the top 10, there are no SEC teams. There are no SEC teams. Arkansas and Vandy are the highest ranked SEC teams right now. Alabama's at 16, Tennessee at 20, Auburn at 21, Florida. Like, there are really good SEC teams, but there are no clear top teams. So, I love Arkansas right now. And Parker, you said, I don't understand Arkansas's ranking. Barely lost to MSU and Duke, beat Texas Tech and Louisville back to back. I agree. I think that Arkansas should probably be 11 in this ranking right here if this is how it looks. But we're only two people and we are not AP poll voters. So that kind of is what it is. Georgia finally ranked. J Hoff 10 says, yeah, Georgia at 25. They definitely deserve it. They haven't beaten great teams. We were talking about the SEC. This is a good transition. They haven't beaten great teams. They just beat Cincinnati. They put up 80 on them, which is theoretically and analytically a good defense, but I don't think it's like the biggest thing in the world. And then they've come off a 34-point win over FSU, one of the worst power conference teams in the country as of right now. Again, Georgia has not played great teams. Their one losses against Clemson in overtime. I think Clemson is a better team, and I think that's why Clemson won the game. Georgia's offense has been ridiculous. The pace they play at is fun and exciting, and it's going to be fun to watch in the SEC. I want to see them play real opponents. We talk about Vandy. Georgia has played a much worse schedule than Vanderbilt, and at least Vandy's undefeated in that schedule. So, again, do they deserve to be top 25? Yeah, I'm fine with that. But I don't think it's like they still need to prove it. They really, really need to prove it. So we'll see how that kind of holds up the rest of the season. I saw someone ask about UVA, who's at 24. Gregory 16 says that UVA is underrated again, one of the best freshman guards, and Tez DeRitter is playing great. Yes, Chance Mallory is an absolute dynamite stick. I love him, and I love UVA. 9-1. They looked really good against Dayton. They've looked really good lately. Their one loss is against Butler, and Butler looks pretty good right now. They look like they might be a tournament team, which might end up not being a bad loss in the grand scheme of things. I just think this UVA team heavily underrated because they don't have a lot of big names. And in the ACC, I think they will make big names for themselves because they're going to have a lot of great games to play, right? Like Duke, Carolina, even NC State and Louisville, Clemson, and all these teams in the ACC where the conferences looks a lot better. They are going to have their opportunity to put their name on the map. I think I had them at 20 or 21. I think it's a fair spot for them. But again, 24 to 20, not the end of the world. Let teams sleep. They're going to play Maryland and Maryland Eastern Shore this week. So they probably should be able to take care of those games. Maryland, not a bad team, but again, we talked about them. They're not amazing. So that's a game that you should win in a little bit of a DMV rivalry. I think Tez DeRitter's been playing great. Johan Grunlo also, another international big playing with him. Chance Mallory, they haven't gotten enough out of Malik Thomas yet, and they still can get more. Jakari White's been awesome. Devin Tillis, like I'm big on this Virginia team. I think they're very heavily slept on. I very, very much agree. Yeah, Jay Gregory again. ACC is wide open. The UVA flying under the radar. Absolutely. They are playing great, and I'm very excited to see how they look in ACC play. Anonymous user said, "What is Illinois' ceiling?" It's a good point to talk about Illinois after the Nebraska loss. They're still ranked. They're at number 18. It's interesting because like they're obviously good. I feel weird about them because they're obviously a good team. They have looked very good in a couple of their wins, and they look shaky against a team like Nebraska, who Nebraska's good, but Nebraska's not this unbelievable, amazing team. Their interior defense was awful. It was like Swiss cheese in there. Every time Nebraska would penetrate their perimeter defensive line, completely shakes up the Illinois defense, and they completely leave their assignments and what they're supposed to do. And then it just takes a cutter, a slide, an extra skip pass, or something like that from Nebraska to find an open shooter or an open guy for an easy bucket. And it was happening all day, the entire game. Yes, they lost on a buzzer beater and a crazy ending, but again, that was Nebraska's game. They were controlling that game, and Illinois was playing catch up. Their front court guys, David Mirkovic, he basically got benched at one point, and same with Tomislav Ivicic because of plus minus and just how they were affecting things negatively. And Brad Underwood identified that. So there are concerns for Illinois similar to last year, where I think they have a higher ceiling last year, but they have the same worry of interior defense and interior presence. And then once teams break that first line of pressure, that is Kylan Boswell and Andrei Stojakovic and whoever's on the outside, the defense collapses. And that's a problem. When you play teams that are very organized offensively, like in Nebraska, they're disciplined, they're intelligent, those teams are going to beat you. If you play a Gonzaga, they're going to beat you by doing that. If you play a BYU, they're going to beat you by doing that. You play a UConn, they're going to beat you by doing that. Like, that's my worry for Illinois, is that they want to compete for national championship this year. They want to be that good. But I think the Nebraska game and how they lost showed us that that's going to be an issue. So what their ceiling is, probably a Final Four with the right path, but that's probably what it is. We got a lot of Carolina comments here. Let's get to that. Cash Duke says that why is UNC is not top 10 laughing emoji. It's the same thing as the Michigan State thing though, right? Like you want a Michigan State to go up. People want Louisville to go up. Where is Carolina going to go up here, right? Like them beating Georgetown and USC upstate. Why should that make them go up above Louisville, BYU, and Michigan State and Houston, except like they're not going to go up. The top 10 teams in the country to me, those top 10 can't move. They can't drop out of the top 10 right now. They've all been playing so well. They've all been proving it. There's no reason for any team to go above them right now unless things start to shake up in the next few weeks. So as of right now, I think that's perfectly fair. JC18 says, why is North Carolina not getting any respect? Again, I think they're getting more than enough respect in this ranking, right? They're number 12 in the country right now, and they have shown a few holes in their team a little bit. They've been really good. They've had a great start to the season. So I think 12 is perfectly fair. I think 12 is actually the ceiling for where you can rank them as of right now. Again, they're going to have games coming up where they can prove that they're better than that, right? Like they play ETSU, Ohio State, ECU, FSU, SMU, Wake, Stanford, Cal, Notre Dame. Those games are all easy. They should win all those games and be whatever that is. I don't know what that would be. Do my math. 17, 16, and 1 going into playing Virginia on the road January 24th. And even then, Carolina might barely be in the top 10 as long as those other teams are all winning at the top. Like, it's not as simple as they look good, they need to move up because teams above them need to move down also in the for the AP poll to shake up like that. Um, so yeah, I think they're getting more than enough respect. I think that's perfectly fine. Duke, Jay says Duke is being 9, 14, 17, and 17. I don't know if that was maybe they were 17 and then someone else was ranked 17 at the time. But yeah, Duke, like they have a great resume, top 4 team in the country, 10 and 0 right now, coming off of wins over Florida, Michigan State. They have a great resume. Duke is firmly on track to be a 1 seed. They're going to play Texas Tech in the Garden this week, Saturday night, which will be a very, very fun game. If you're in the New Jersey, New York area, like myself, by the way, 5:30, you have Houston playing Arkansas. Love that game, especially because I talked about Arkansas before. Like that's the type of team that should be able to kind of take them out of their game. That's at 5:30 in Newark, and then Duke and Texas Tech Saturday night at 8 o'clock at the Garden. 20-minute train ride over the river, over the Hudson to get. You can watch both those games if you hurry. After the Houston Arkansas game from Newark, you can get to MSG and watch Duke versus Texas Tech. Duke's awesome, one of the best teams in the country, absolutely, no doubt about it. Cardiac Kamba 15 says Dan Hurley's the best coach in the country. Kelvin Sampson hasn't won anything. That's a fine argument. I'm a Kelvin Sampson guy. I think he's the best coach in the country. But again, UConn is doing UConn things, and Dan Hurley is doing Dan Hurley things. And I don't really have an argument against that in the country. Let's get to the teams that are receiving votes. I do want to touch on them before we don't have time to, because it's good to look at them to know who to watch out for. If you're a team in the back end of the top 25 and you want to stay ranked, you don't want these teams to do well. USC, their only loss coming. What was their only loss? USC. I think it was Washington they lost to last week. That's what it was. 10-1. They lost to Washington. They beat San Diego and Wazoo, and then they get to play UTSA and Brown. They have a pretty bad schedule. Their team is really, really banged up. Eric Musselman's looking to like add on a walk-on or something like that during the winter break or something. So they're interesting. They're injury ridden right now. They do get to play Michigan and Michigan State on January 2nd and January 5th, both on the road. Listen, if they pick up a win there, they'll be in the top 25 in either of those games. But likely gonna have to there's a good chance that they don't win either of those games, and then they're kind of out of contention here in the receiving votes section of the top 25. Other teams that are receiving votes: Iowa, Seton Hall, LSU, Kentucky, back up, UCLA, Clemson, Cal, St. Mary's, Arizona State. Iowa and Seton Hall are interesting. Iowa, to me, I don't think deserve to be dropped from the top 25 just because they lost in Ames against Iowa State, who's arguably number 2, 3. They're a top 4 team in the country, without a doubt. They're arguably even higher. Iowa controlled that game for the first half and a majority of it. So I think that was a good showing for Iowa. Iowa State's really good. Like, they wasn't their best game, and you took them out of their kind of style. So good game for Iowa. Good showing. Again, they're 27th in the AP poll ranking based on the votes here. It's not the end of the world if you're 25 or 27. I think that they probably deserve to be in over a team like Georgia, but again, not going to go crazy about it. It kind of is what it is. You have games coming up to prove it. Seton Hall is another interesting one. They just beat Rutgers in the Battle of New Jersey. Rutgers not been great, obviously. They're one of the worst power conference teams in the country, but Seton Hall has been very good. They're, I think, 10-1 right now. Really good to see them back. Their arena was rocking for the first time I've seen in a few years, to be completely honest. Good for Seton Hall. They will have a weak Big East schedule this year. to potentially get back into the tournament. So they win the NIT. They're all of a sudden they're one of the worst teams in the country last year, and then now this year they have 10 wins and they're gonna more than double what the win total they had last season, and maybe they get into the NCAA tournament. Get your last comments in. Obviously, I want to make sure we get to all the good ones. LSU, Kentucky after the Indiana win. Neither team looked great. Kentucky looked better. So that's good to see from them. Clemson's also up there. ASU is getting some votes also. Why is Auburn even ranked? Someone added on the comments. Peyton Leonard said Auburn beats a bad Oregon team, blowout losses to Arizona and Michigan. They're also getting steamrolled this Saturday by Purdue. You're not going to rank based on what you think is going to happen this week. That would be a poor job in the ranking. I hear you though. They're 8-3. They've lost to Houston by 1. Don't forget that. They lost to Houston by 1 in the last second game. They lost to Michigan and Arizona. But the problem is, like, Michigan and Arizona are beating everybody by a million. Arizona beat Alabama by 20. Arizona, like, they're beating a lot of teams by 40. Michigan beat Gonzaga by 40, and they beat Auburn by 30. Like, you can't just look at those top 2 teams in the country that are beating everybody by a million and say, oh, no way Auburn should be ranked, because not only did they lost by 1 to Houston, they also beat St. John's and NC State. And yes, they beat Oregon, who hasn't been good, but they beat them handily, and they beat NC State and St. John's. Those are 2 good wins to keep them in the top 25. I have no problem with keeping Auburn in the back end of the top 25. I think it's completely fair, because if you want to drop Auburn, you got to drop St. John's for the same kind of rationale, and because they beat St. John's, obviously, too. So I think Auburn in there is fine. I disagree with that a little bit. Cardiac Kemba, shout out Seton Hall, go Big East. Yeah, good for UConn. If the Big East is going to be half decent, you need teams like that to kind of step up. Shaheen is a great coach. Shaheen is awesome, and Shaheen is great for the state of New Jersey basketball, and for Seton Hall. Some of the other comments, there were Illinois comments before. Ryan Noah says panic button on Illinois. I wouldn't say full panic button, but if you thought they were national title contenders before this week, then maybe slight panic. I did not think that they were that legit to win a title. So Illinois plays zero help defense, need to get a new scheme, or we get screened to death. Exactly what we talked about before. You're going to get picked apart by teams that are decisive and play quickly offensively, and that's what we kind of saw. R. Buckles, 420, says, Kansas, a lot of question marks. Darren Peterson's a liability. Definitely can't count on him being there when it counts. I mean, him being a liability because of his hamstring injury is kind of ridiculous to say. Like, he's been hurt. He's trying to play through it because he does want to play for the team. He's not trying to sit out, even with all the reports that are happening. Sure, if he keeps getting injured, there could be more reports of him potentially sitting out, but that is TBD. They've been good. They're still winning games without him. He goes in and out of games. Melvin Council had 36 against NC State. Their supporting cast is stepping up. Hopefully he's fully healthy for late January and February to get ready for March, and maybe they can be a dangerous team because they're going to have more offensive balance if they're fully healthy. So Kansas deserves to be there. They're winning games. You can't take them out. That'd be ridiculous. One more time, Colby5989, shout out Nebraska ball. We got to shout Nebraska ball. Any chance I see the word Nebraska ball, I'm excited to see that. Is there something about Georgia that I missed? D. Dumley84. They're playing bad teams. They're winning games. They play the fastest pace you will see in college basketball. So we'll see if they're going to be the real deal when they get into SEC play. Roaring Hunter, based on conference play, maximum of 4 teams in the Big East make the tournament. Yeah, it might be even less than that at this rate. With teams like Creighton and Xavier looking as bad as they've been, and Marquette looking awful, you might even get like 3 teams in from the Big East, realistically. I do agree with you. Will a Big East team make the Big 8? Will a Big East team, Big 10 team, Big 10 team make the Elite 8 this year? I don't see it. I mean, I would, if you gun to my head, I would say yes, right? Like, you have Michigan, you have Purdue, you have Michigan State at the top right now, and you also have teams like Nebraska that have looked good, Illinois that has been hot and cold. I would take my chances that one of those teams will get to the Elite 8. Yes, absolutely. Final 4 might be tougher. Even then, you might have to consider taking one of them, that one team gets there, but Elite 8 for sure. Michigan should for sure be lower, need a bailout from refs to beat Maryland. They won by 18. I understand what you're saying, bailout by refs. They won by 18. Pharrell Payne gets hurt. I get that. I think they would have won that game anyway in a tighter battle. I mean, I think at least. Again, we can say ifs, ands, buts, and maybes all day, but it's kind of unfair to say that Michigan should be lower because of that. Because in a game where they're taken out of their game flow, they still win by basically 20 and they put up 100. So I don't really get how that's kind of fair to do that. We did miss comments before. I do want to get one thing back, talking about Alabama. I didn't talk about them a lot. I'm not worried about Alabama that much. Where are they on here? They are, am I tripping? 16. I was tripping for a second. I don't think that's fair to drop them that far. 7-3. They played the toughest schedule in the entire country. Their losses are against elite teams. They have wins against elite teams. They have lost to Purdue, Gonzaga, Arizona, all top 10 teams in the country. And they have beaten St. John's, Illinois, UNLV, Maryland, Clemson. I wouldn't be worried at all about Alabama. Arizona was on fire. Braden Burries had a crazy game. It kind of is what it is. Alabama playing their style is still going to be Alabama. So that's going to be the last thing we talk about. Last comments we get to for the week. Appreciate y'all being here as always. Next Monday, same thing. Every time there's an AP poll, we drop it. 1 p.m. Eastern time stream on the BR platforms. Appreciate y'all for being here again and enjoy another great week. See ya.